Morning with a major development surrounding coronavirus as we go to where another person has died overnight, taking the national toll to 7. Australia's banks have just announced a multi-billion-dollar rescue package that will prop up struggling small businesses. A war cabinet is meeting right now, ironing out its response to the looming unemployment crisis. Our borders tonight, they shut from 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Saving Time to all non-residents. They will be refused entry into Australia. More than 700 Australians have now tested positive to COVID-19, with almost 50 now recovered. Well, an 81-year-old woman has died last night in Sydney after battling the virus. She's come in close contact with another confirmed case linked to the Ryde Hospital. 7 people have now died nationwide, 6 in New South Wales. To take us through the lifeline that's just been offered up by the banks, we have Fiona Willan standing by for us in Canberra. Fee, good morning to you. What does this involve?
Well, Davina, this is all about keeping businesses up and running so that Australians can keep their jobs. So today, banks have announced that they'll defer loan repayments for small businesses impacted by coronavirus. Those payments will be delayed by 6 months, and the new arrangements will begin as early as Monday. So the Australian Banking Association CEO, Anna Bligh, announced this news in Sydney a short time ago, saying that small businesses in Australia employ 5 million people, and this plan is designed to help them keep doing that.
This assistance package will apply to more than $100 billion of existing small business loans. It could put as much as $8 billion back into the pockets of small businesses as they struggle through this virus. This is a multi-billion-dollar shot in the arm for businesses when they need it most.
Now, Ms Bligh was also asked if there would be any help for those with residential mortgages, and she said at this stage banks say they're not seeing a high volume of people in distress with their mortgages, but if that changes, they'll look at what can be done. She added that anyone concerned about their mortgage should contact their bank directly for help. And there'll be more economic measures unveiled this weekend. The federal government is now putting the finishing touches on another support plan for businesses and workers. It's already announced a stimulus package worth $17.5 billion. This one is expected to be worth much more. We understand it will extend some of the measures already announced, but there will be some new things in there too. Scott Morrison has actually hinted that it may include an increase in unemployment benefits. Both the PM and Treasurer have spoken today about what the new package will look like.
Income support, that's exactly what we're looking at.
Right.
The existing range of income support measures, and particularly for those who would find themselves no longer in employment or have reduced hours of employment, or sole traders in particular.
It will be focused on cushioning the blow for those Australians who may have lost their job, but also supporting small businesses, because we want them to be able to meet the fixed costs, whether that's their rent, that's their energy bills, their water bills.
This morning, Scott Morrison and the Chief Medical Officer, Brendan Murphy, are holding a meeting with state leaders. We're expecting an update on the national situation this afternoon, and in a sign of just how careful everyone is being, that meeting today is being held via video conference, and the PM and Chief Medical Officer stopped to use their hand sanitizer on the way into the room. So nobody taking any chances, Davina.
Breaking news from that meeting. We'll have it for you across the day. Fiona, thank you. Well, it is a race against time for international travellers to arrive in Australia, with the borders set to close to foreigners in a little over 9 hours. Mark Barrows joins us in the studio. Mark, there really is a mad rush to get out of Australia at the moment.
It's in both directions, Davina. We had cameras at the Sydney airport this morning. There was a rush of foreigners trying to get in. In many cases, these were the partners of Australian residents. So you can imagine how anxious they were to get back into Australia. At 9 o'clock, the border closes to non-residents, and only Australians can come in. So that's huge. We've also got this double whammy of Qantas. By the end of the month, they will have stopped all international flights. So it's a two-way street that's snaring so many people, and it's going to be hard to predict what's going to happen after 9 o'clock tonight, with so many people struggling to get back into Australia. I've spoken to people who they're Australians who are overseas.
There are no flights.
They can't get flights into Australia. And one couple I've spoken to is trapped in South America. They can't get out of the country they're in because the borders are closed. So they can't get out of the country. And then even if they did, they couldn't even find a way of getting into Australia. And they were desperately concerned. Anyway, here's just a taste of what people are saying at Sydney Airport. These are people who just got in before the border closed.
I had already booked a flight for Saturday, and now I had to book a whole new one to get here in time.
Because I heard last night, tonight at 9 p.m. will be closed, so I just make the day.
I follow my husband.
Did you know that the borders were closing tonight?
Yes, I did.
Mark, it's a really difficult situation and it is inevitable. Our tourism industry, there might not be a tourism industry.
Oh, I think that's fair to say that, especially, you look at a place like Tasmania. Tasmania has shut up shop. So tourism for so long now has been the lifeblood of Tasmania. We're looking at 6 months in Tasmania.
Well, you can't get in or out.
You cannot even get in. I'm a Tasmanian. I can't even get in there. I want to go and see my mother. I can't get in. I'm not a tourist. So all these people who've been trying to get in can't. So you really have to feel sorry for all the tourism businesses in Tasmania and right around the country. The flow-on effects of this are amazing. And then, of course, we have this announcement of 20,000 Qantas employees. They're going to be stood down. No international Qantas flights coming into the country. It is incredible. The slowdown in the tourism industry is going to be phenomenal. We spoke to Alan Joyce this morning. Here's what he had to say.
We're probably going to go through a recession. And the economy, I think, needs Qantas there to get business moving again, small and large businesses, to get people in tourism to travel again. Unfortunately, we've had to pull the schedule to places like Hamilton, Maroochydore, the Gold Coast, massively down. You think of those tour operators, those taxi drivers, those restaurants, they need Qantas to get back services in there when this is over. And we need to have the people ready to do that to get the economy moving.
But the problem there, Davina, is, and he's pointing to that, no one knows when that's going to be.
Yeah.
He's saying maybe 2-3 months, but
the government's saying at least 6.
6. So this could go on for so much longer. He's stood down 20,000 people, no overseas flights, half of domestic, and he's saying there could be more to come.
There's a real emergency, though, for any Australians overseas at the moment. What do they do? Because we've heard reports some people are crowdfunding to get a charter flight home because there are no flights, or what little flights there are, they're too expensive.
That's right. So there's a group of people in Peru who are crowdfunding. The figures are astronomical. So I know this couple I've spoken to in Ecuador, they've been given a figure of something like 500,000.
You can't.
To charter a big plane back to Australia. So that's not going to happen. We've got 250 Australians on board a cruise liner coming off the coast of Italy. It's going to come into Venice. They will get off in Italy, of all places, and be told, get out of here. How does that happen? The logistics are going to be such a hurdle for so many people to get back in.
OK, we'll stand by to see what the government has to say about this later on today. Mark, thank you. We do have a bit of good news to report today. The Australian stock market has opened higher, the green replacing the sea of red that we've been seeing on the board of the ASX for days now. Right now, the All Ords is up 2.75%. The rally comes on the back of a stronger day of trade on Wall Street after weeks of turmoil. Tech stocks leading a much-needed rebound. Police have been deployed to the front line of supermarkets around the country as panic buying becomes increasingly violent. Officers were seen here patrolling aisles at Epping, Coles and Sydney's northwest in an attempt to calm the public and make shoppers feel safe. Well, Ruth Williams is outside that store for us right now. Ruth, good morning to you. What are you seeing?
Oh, good morning, Davina. Things are moving relatively smoothly here in Epping right now, but that wasn't the case earlier this morning where we saw people queuing from before dawn, and once they made their way inside the store, many of them were still caught short. Despite having been queued up for so long, there was no toilet paper to be found when they made their way inside the store, and many of those people came out empty-handed. Here's what those frustrated shoppers had to say to us first thing today.
No toilet paper, no tissues, nothing that you really want. Limits on everything, 2 boxes of tissues for instance, but there aren't any.
I think the shop should have warned people what's available and what's not available.
Well, look, we saw similar scenes at supermarkets right throughout the city. We were also at Woolworths in Lidcombe this morning where we watched people there scrap it out over table napkins, which are now being stocked in the same section as toilet paper. And there was also a limit on how many table napkins those people could buy at the neighbouring Costco. Police were there at Costco. They were patrolling the aisles after stampedes of customers barrelled their way through the entrance yesterday. Today, those people were being very heavily managed, and their trolleys were also being wiped down to keep them clean as they made their way into the store. The big problem today, Davina, despite assurances there is enough supply to meet demand, the big problem is that people are arriving to find that the shelves are still bare. The Premier today, she has released a statement saying she is now removing curfews on delivery trucks. Delivery trucks will be able to make their way to supermarkets 24 hours a day, and that should go some way to help keep our shelves stocked up. But the big message from the Premier's office today is that once again, all this panic buying does need to stop. The key here is that once that panic buying stops, the shelves can be restocked.
Ruth, we'll leave it there. Thank you. Well, teachers at a Melbourne high school are pleading for schools to be shut down for the safety of staff and students. Stephanie Anderson joins us live from Kensington. Steph, one has had to close this morning.
That's right, Davina. Kensington Primary School, where I am here in Melbourne's northwest, has been forced to shut its doors after 2 parents were confirmed cases of COVID-19. Now, we understand that there will be a number of staff and students who had contact with those 2 people who were now forced into self-isolation for 14 days. And this is now the 3rd Victorian government school that's had to shut its doors due to a coronavirus infection. But the advice remains the same here across the state, and that is that students and staff should be turning up to school as normal each and every morning. Now, we know that has been causing some concern for teachers and parents, and today the Age newspaper is reporting that 45 teachers from Footscray High School have put pen to paper to express their concerns. They've written to the Education Department saying schools need to either be sent into lockdown or there has to be dramatic changes made to protect the health of staff and students. And the latest we've heard from the Education Department is that additional cleaning has now been ordered for all schools between now and when school holidays kick in on Friday next week, and that also hand sanitizer is being delivered across the state. Davina?
And there's a shortage of that. OK, Steph, thank you. Well, in the United States, major cities are shutting down after cases nearly doubled in the past 24 hours. Our US correspondent Amelia Adams is in Los Angeles, and Amelia, right there, that could be the next city in the firing line.
It is the next city. Davina, this has literally just been announced in the last few minutes. I've got a knot in my stomach. LA County now under what they're calling a Safe at Home Act, which means basically millions of families like my own can only leave for essential groceries and medical visits. That is a similar order that already applies across a lot of California. So look, it does make sense. Incredible, unprecedented, but necessary measures because we've had a huge spike now in numbers of coronavirus cases, up to 13,000 currently. That number was 11,000 just a couple of hours ago. The death toll nationwide in America, 193. New York State has been the hardest hit, and the mayor there has just warned that city, New York City, will run out of medical supplies in 2 to 3 weeks. He says he needs 50 million surgical masks, 15,000 ventilators. These are huge numbers. And earlier today, all the state governors met with, or some teleconferenced with, President Trump, and they expressed their very, very serious concerns about running out of medical and testing supplies. On that, we've now seen the first field hospital. The building of that is underway in Washington State, which is actually home to the largest outbreak of coronavirus in the States. And you can see there it's a huge soccer field being transformed into this temporary hospital to provide some relief, I suppose, for regular hospitals. Gives you an idea of the escalation that they are expecting there. And just finally, Davina, the US State Department has in the last few hours issued a do not travel advisory. So very similar to what you have back in Australia. The President telling all US citizens to get home immediately or risk being stranded overseas indefinitely.
And Amelia, what does that mean for Australians then in the US at the moment? You mentioned that you're feeling nervous. You've got a family you've got to explain this to. They're in lockdown. What does it mean for foreigners in America when everything's already stretched to the limit and in lockdown?
Yeah, it's very difficult. I mean, I suppose anyone travelling, or even I've got lots of friends who have just decided to move home because of all this. But if you're an expat and you've got a family and you're set up as we are, big decisions now have to be made about how the households run. A lot of states in America are homeschooling, including California. So who goes to work, who doesn't? And then industries like ours where you do need to go to work if you're providing a service, do you then self-isolate yourself or do you go home to your family and risk the spread? So some big decisions to be made for everyone.